The Turkish scout sees it first through the morning mist, a dark line stretching across the horizon like a forest that shouldn't be there. He urges his horse forward, squinting against the dawn light bleeding over the Wallachian hills. The army of Sultan Mehmed II, 90,000 strong, marches behind him toward Targovishte, the capital of this rebellious principality. They expect an easy conquest. Vlad Dracula, the voivode who dared defy the Ottoman Empire, has maybe 30,000 men at best. The outcome is inevitable. But as the scout draws closer, the forest takes shape. And it's not trees, they're stakes. Thousands upon thousands of wooden stakes, each 20 feet tall, each crowned with a human body. The impaled stretch for nearly a mile in every direction, a grotesque garden of the dead planted in perfect rows. Some bodies are fresh, their faces still twisted in final agony. Others have been there for weeks, blackened by sun and rain, their flesh peeling away in strips. Birds circle overhead. Crows, vultures, ravens, landing on shoulders and picking at eye sockets. Some have built nests in the rotting corpses. The scout's horse rears, nearly throwing him. The smell hits like a physical blow, decay and excrement, and something worse, something that seems to seep into his lungs and coat his throat. He can't breathe, can't think, can't process what he's seeing. In the center, raised higher than the rest on a stake gilded with gold leaf, hangs what was once Hamza Pasha, the Ottoman governor. He's dressed in his finest robes, now stained black with blood and waste. Around him, arranged like a court attending their lord, are his officers, his soldiers, his servants. Beyond them, thousands more, men, women, children, Ottoman prisoners, Wallachian traitors, Saxon merchants who chose the wrong side, all impaled, all displayed like trophies. It's June 1462, and Mehmed the Conqueror, the man who shattered Constantinople, who built an empire that spans 3 continents, is about to discover there are things that even conquerors fear. His army will see this forest. His janissaries will smell the rot. His generals will understand the message carved in flesh and wood. This is what happens when you enter Dracula's land. If you think you know the story of Dracula from movies and novels, you know nothing. The real Vlad didn't drink blood. He decorated his kingdom with bodies. Here on Brutal History, we walk through that forest of stakes, through the testimonies of traumatized witnesses, through the Ottoman records that tried to explain the unexplainable. Every view, every like, every subscription keeps the memory of those 20,000 souls from fading into legend. To understand the forest of the impaled, you need to see the man who planted it and the world that made him into something darker than any vampire legend. Vlad III was born in 1431 in Sighisoara, Transylvania. His father, Vlad II, bore the title Dracula, meaning dragon. After joining the Order of the Dragon, a chivalric brotherhood sworn to defend Christendom against Ottoman invasion, young Vlad became known as Dracula, son of the dragon. Later, that name would carry a darker translation, son of the devil. His childhood was a masterclass in betrayal and survival. When Vlad was 11, his father made a deal with Sultan Murad II to secure his throne in Wallachia, a buffer state caught between the Ottoman Empire and Christian Hungary. As insurance, Vlad and his younger brother Radu were sent to the Ottoman court as hostages, collateral in human form. For 6 years, Vlad lived in the palace at Edirne and later Egrigos, learning Turkish, studying the Quran, and watching how the Ottomans wielded power. He saw Janissaries, Christian boys stolen from their families and converted into the Sultan's elite warriors. He witnessed executions, tortures, the systematic brutality that kept the empire's vast territories in line. And he learned about impalement, the Ottomans' preferred method for traitors and rebels, a death so slow and agonizing it served as a deterrent across provinces. The Ottomans were teaching him. They just didn't realize what kind of student he was. While Vlad absorbed lessons in cruelty, his father and older brother Mircea were betrayed and murdered by Wallachian boyars, the noble class who played kingdoms like chess pieces. Mircea was buried alive after being blinded with hot steaks. His father was assassinated and buried in an unmarked grave. The family that had sent Vlad away as insurance was destroyed, and he was powerless to stop it. In 1448, at 17, the Ottomans released Vlad and backed his claim to the Wallachian throne. He ruled for 2 months before being overthrown. It would take him 8 more years of exile, warfare, and political maneuvering before he reclaimed power in 1456. By then, he was 25 years old, and every softness had been carved out of him. Vlad's second reign began with a message written in blood. He invited the Boyar families, the same class that had murdered his father and brother, to an Easter feast at his court in Targoviste. After they'd eaten and drunk their fill, he asked them a question. "How many princes have you served in your lifetimes?" The oldest boasted he'd served 30 voivodes. Others competed with their answers, 20, 25, 40. They were proud of their survival, their ability to outlast rulers. They didn't understand they were confessing to serial treason. Vlad's guards seized them all. The elderly and infirm were impaled immediately outside the palace, their bodies displayed along the road as a welcome to the new reign. The younger, stronger boyars, along with their families, were forced to march 50 miles north to the ruins of Poenari Castle. There, they were put to work rebuilding the fortress, stone by stone, until their fine clothes rotted off their backs and their hands bled. Most died from exhaustion. The survivors became Vlad's most loyal servants, broken and remade into instruments of his will. This was Vlad's philosophy: total control through absolute terror. He didn't want submission. He wanted paralysis, a fear so complete that rebellion became unthinkable. And his weapon of choice was impalement, refined into an art form that would make even Ottoman executioners recoil. Impalement, as Vlad practiced it, was engineered for maximum suffering. The stake was carefully shaped, rounded at the tip to avoid piercing vital organs, oiled to ease insertion. The victim was forced onto the stake, which entered through the rectum or vagina and was slowly driven upward through the body cavity. The stake was then raised and planted in the ground, leaving the victim suspended, gravity slowly pulling them down over hours or even days as the stake gradually worked its way through their torso. If done correctly, the stake would emerge from the shoulder or chest, and the victim would remain alive, conscious, and screaming for up to 3 days before shock, dehydration, or infection finally brought death. Vlad employed specialists, men who understood anatomy well enough to make death as slow as possible. It wasn't execution, it was theatre. Between 1456 and 1462, Vlad ruled Wallachia with methodical brutality. He impaled merchants who cheated customers, thieves who stole bread, Saxon settlers from Brasov who allied with his enemies, and anyone who questioned his authority. Entire villages were impaled when they harbored Ottoman sympathizers. German pamphlets from the period, propaganda pieces designed to discredit him, nevertheless contained kernels of truth. Forests of the impaled near Sibiu, mass executions in Brasov, dinner banquets held among dying men. One story appears in multiple sources. Vlad held a feast surrounded by the impaled, dipping his bread in their blood as they screamed. When a nobleman complained about the stench, Vlad had him impaled on a taller stake than the rest. "Now you can breathe cleaner air," he said. Whether this actually happened or was simply propaganda, the meaning was unmistakable. Vlad didn't just execute his enemies, he enjoyed it. But Vlad's greatest display of impalement, the one that would define his legacy, came in response to the Ottoman Empire's final patience snapping. Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, sent envoys demanding Vlad appear in Istanbul to explain his refusal to pay tribute and his raids into Ottoman territory. Vlad's response was characteristic. He nailed the envoys' turbans to their heads for refusing to remove them in his presence, then sent them back as living messages. Mehmed declared war. In the spring of 1462, he assembled an army of 90,000 men, 3 times Vlad's entire military force, and marched into Wallachia to end the Dragon's Son once and for all. Vlad couldn't meet them in open battle. He didn't have the numbers. But he had something else, a mind shaped by trauma into a weapon, and 6 years to prepare a welcome. The Ottomans were marching toward Targovishte. They had no idea they were walking into the nightmare. Vlad's strategy was simple, brutal, and psychological. He couldn't defeat 90,000 Ottoman soldiers in battle, but he could break their will before they ever reached him. As Mehmed's army advanced through Wallachia in June 1462, they found a land systematically destroyed. Every village they passed was burned to ash. Every well was poisoned with lime and rotting corpses. Every field was salted. The Ottomans found no food, no water, no shelter, only scorched earth and silence. Then came the night attacks. Vlad's forces, dressed in Ottoman uniforms taken from previous raids, would strike the Turkish camps after midnight. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, slitting throats, setting fires, creating chaos and paranoia. The Janissaries, elite warriors who had conquered empires, slept in their armor, jumping at shadows. Mehmed himself nearly died in one raid when Vlad's cavalry penetrated to the center of the camp, specifically hunting for the Sultan's tent. They killed thousands before melting back into the night. But these were preludes. The real message waited outside Targovishte. When Mehmed's army finally approached the capital in mid-June, Exhausted from weeks of guerrilla warfare and scorched earth, they encountered the forest. Ottoman chronicler Leonikos Chalkokondyles, who accompanied the campaign, described it in detail that still chills 6 centuries later. The Sultan's army came across a field stretching 3 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. Wooden stakes rose from the ground like a grotesque forest, each one crowned with impaled bodies, men, women, and children. About 20,000 of them, according to witnesses. 20,000. The number is disputed by historians. Some claim it was exaggerated for propaganda, others that it was conservative. But every source agrees. The scale was unprecedented, the display deliberate, the psychological impact devastating. The impaled weren't random victims. Vlad had been collecting them for months, specifically for this moment. Ottoman prisoners from his border raids, Turkish merchants caught in Wallachia, captured soldiers, sympathizers and collaborators, and at the center, raised highest on that gilded stake, Hamza Pasha, Mehmed's own governor, whom Vlad had captured months earlier and saved specifically for this display. The bodies were arranged strategically, the freshest corpses at the outer edges, still writhing, still screaming. Deeper in, those who'd been impaled days earlier, silent but still alive, their eyes following the Ottoman soldiers. At the center, the oldest bodies, reduced to blackened husks, bird nests visible in their rib cages. The crows had grown so fat and lazy from feeding, they barely flew when soldiers approached. Greek historian Michael Critoboulos, another Ottoman chronicler, wrote that Mehmed himself rode through part of the forest, trying to show courage to his men. But even the conqueror of Constantinople, a man who'd seen the Hagia Sophia's floors run red, who'd executed thousands after taking the city, was shaken. What man could rule such a land? He reportedly asked his advisors. A man who does such things is worthy of respect. But respect wasn't the issue. The forest had achieved its purpose. It broke the Ottoman advance. Mehmed's soldiers, already demoralized by the night raids and scorched earth, saw the forest and understood they were fighting something beyond a normal enemy. This wasn't a prince defending his kingdom. This was a demon protecting hell itself. Desertions began that night. By morning, entire units had vanished. The Sultan held council with his generals. They advised retreat. The army was exhausted. Disease was spreading from the poisoned water. Supplies were running dangerously low. And now this abomination that made even hardened warriors question whether Allah had abandoned them in this cursed land. Mehmed agreed. Rather than face Vlad in his own territory, the Sultan withdrew, leaving his general Radu the Handsome, ironically Vlad's own brother, who'd converted to Islam during their captivity, to continue the campaign with local forces. The forest of the impaled had accomplished what 30,000 Wallachian soldiers never could. It turned back the largest army in the world through pure psychological warfare. Vlad had weaponized horror itself. But victory was temporary. Radu, backed by Wallachian boyars who'd grown tired of Vlad's brutality, slowly conquered the country. By November 1462, Vlad was forced to flee to Hungary, where he was imprisoned by King Matthias Corvinus on dubious charges. He spent 12 years in captivity while his brother ruled Wallachia as an Ottoman puppet. Vlad eventually regained his throne in 1476, but his third reign lasted only months. In December of that year, he was killed in battle against the Ottomans near Bucharest. Some sources say he was assassinated by his own men, tired of his cruelty. His head was cut off and sent to Istanbul, where Mehmed, now an old man, had it displayed on a stake outside the palace. Even in death, Vlad couldn't escape impalement. The forest itself stood for years after Vlad's retreat. Travelers reported seeing it as late as 1465, the stakes still standing, the bodies reduced to skeletons picked clean by birds. Eventually, weather and decay brought the stakes down, and the forest faded into the earth. But its memory never died. Ottoman records show that the campaign of 1462 traumatized an entire generation of soldiers. Veterans who'd fought across 3 continents, who'd stormed the walls of Constantinople, refused to speak of what they saw in Wallachia. The forest became legend, then myth, and eventually the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula, a vampire who lived in Transylvania and fed on blood. The real story was somehow worse than the fiction. Vlad the Impaler killed an estimated 40,000 to 100,000 people during his 6-year reign. The Forest of the Impaled was his masterpiece, a monument to the power of terror, a demonstration that psychological warfare could achieve what armies couldn't. He didn't drink blood. He didn't need to. He found something far more effective, making his enemies see death before they reached battle, making them smell rot before they drew swords, making them understand that this was a war they'd already lost. This isn't legend. This is history, documented in Ottoman chronicles, German pamphlets, and the archaeological evidence of mass graves around Targoviste. Here on Brutal History, we don't let the vampire myths erase the real horror. We remember the 20,000 who died in that forest, impaled for strategy, displayed for terror, reduced to weapons in a war between empires. The stakes may have rotted away centuries ago, but the truth is ours to carry. Subscribe and refuse to let history turn monsters into myths.